Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this September 6, 2017 day on our calendar, a Wednesday. And I'm in a hurry today, folks, says Greg Anthony. And I'm in a hurry because I got a lot to do. You know, time is money, and this show is not making me any money. So let's get through it as quick as we can so I can get on to something that can sustain my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in America. Oh, yes, that's most important. Now, we got to talk about, I got three things I want to start out with, but we're going to talk about Irma. And in German, Irma is translated as the war goddess. Okay, we'll talk about Irma. Then we're going to talk about the unprecedented amount of child pornography found at the Vatican. And thirdly, we're going to talk about, are the homeless being transported to Fema camps, disappearing off the streets of LA, New York, etc.? Pretty good subjects. But first, before we get to Irma, a monster in the making, I've got to say this. Why do people, and me included, when a natural disaster or an accident occurs in far-off lands, and I mean even on the East Coast now, why do you always deep down when they say a Category 4 is coming and building, deep down inside, you go, oh, please make it a Category 4. Please make it a 5. Don't waste my time on a 1 or 2. And, you know, think of the people sitting on their couch watching CNN or Fox or the Weather Channel. And there's the typical American sitting there watching the hurricane build. Irma, hey, quit making dinner. Get over here and watch this hurricane. It's growing it's named Irma after you. They say it's a Category 4. Oh, Harry, I can't. I'm making dinner. I don't want to watch anything. If there slams into the coast and people get killed, then call me. And it'll probably fizzle out and be a 2. Well, you know, Irma, they say it could even get up to a 7. Well, you know, Harry. Well, Irma, what are you? You're only a 5. Harry, you want dinner tonight? Okay, Irma, if it builds to a 7 and there's natural disasters and there's carnage all over the place, I'll call you out of the kitchen. You know, why is it that way? We deep down want to see tragedy. Yeah, we don't want to waste our time on the TV just watching a Category 1 or 2. Hey, if there's going to be a earthquake, make it the super volcano on the Yellowstone and get the darn thing over with. And if there's going to be a war, I don't want this kind of piecemeal stuff on the street. You know, terrorist attacks here and there. Let's have an all-out big one. Let's blow the hell out of everything. Why don't we? Let's see how it goes. And you know, you might get your wish there, sir, on the couch. You just might get your wish. Well, anyway, Irma, a monster in the making. And I want to talk about the Randy Quaid saga, too. You know who Randy Quaid is, the infamous actor. Remember the actor who played in Independence Day? And he's played in over 90 films. A character actor. But anyway, Hurricane Irma is weather manipulation, folks, at its best. In 2005, Hollywood came out with a movie called Category 7. Did you know that? It was about huge hurricane storms like Harvey and now maybe Irma, spawning tornadoes, causing destruction at unprecedented levels, destroying America and the world. Wow. Could that be what's happening today? Is that what we have here with Irma right after Harvey? And then to add injury to insult, we have Jose. Jose coming right behind Irma. Another tropical storm they say is going to grow into a hurricane. Weather manipulation at its best, folks. Also, Irma, like I said earlier, is a German name with the meaning war goddess. Now, if you go to my website, I put the trailer of Category 7 up. and you can watch that. And you can also get the movie free online if you want to watch the Earth get destroyed before it really does. Just to get you an idea what's going to happen. You can go watch that movie. Okay. Now, this Randy Quaid saga is interesting. And the reason is I delved into acting, and I know a little bit about Hollywood, not too much. But he had a great career. One other thing, though, Randy Quaid, the actor who claims to be on the run, yes, from the Illuminati, was in that movie playing Tornado Tommy. He was in Category 7. And would it be interesting to get his take on what is happening? But really, would it be? Stories like his often amuse me, folks. Here's a guy who made over 90 films, grossed over $40 million in his career, was nominated for an Oscar, and here he is broke. Can't afford, he's going to be homeless, they said a year ago. Making stupid videos like he just did this February. Now, Quaid posted a video on Twitter in which he gave the beloved "I'm back" catchphrase. Remember from Independence Day when he went in and destroyed the alien spacecraft? The context was rather different, though, in this February Twitter feed. Though, oh wow, I got somebody they always call at the wrong time. Why is it when I get a phone call, it comes in right during the show, and then they say, well, don't you have a producer? No, I don't. I'm making no money on this show. What do you expect? The context was rather different, like I was saying on the Twitter feed. Though in his post, he said, while pretending to have rough sex with his wife Evie, who was shown wearing a bikini and a Rupert Murdoch mask, while an unseen dog barked in the background. On the one hand, of course, he and his wife, this bizarre behavior need to be questioned as the reason for his fall from grace in Hollywood. Now, police reports, what do they say? Since his last credited screen role in 2009, he has been on the run from U.S. law enforcement. The trouble began in September of that year when Quaid and his wife were arrested in Texas. They'd left a hotel in California with an outstanding tab of around $10,000 on their room. Now, let me just add something here. Who spends $10,000 at a hotel, and you should feel sorry for a person like that? I mean, I go to Motel 6, and when I have to spend, $30 or $40, that's enough. But $10,000 on a motel room, and then you feel sorry for the guy? Now, I'm going to get a little bit into this in a minute, but further, unpaid hotel bills have since come up to light, other ones that he's done. Now, a year later, they were arrested again, this time for squatting in the guest house of a home they'd owned some years ago. Various court dates for both arrests were set and missed, and well into 6 figures of bail money was forfeited. The first case was eventually dismissed against Randy for lack of evidence, while Evie was sentenced to 240 hours of community service. 4 days after warrants were issued for their arrest over the second, the Quaids popped up in Canada. Were they until last year, just out of the clutches of the U.S. law enforcement? Where they are now is anyone's guess. Now, what's Quaid's side of the story? Quaid says he's been targeted, his bank account raided, and there's an orchestrated smear campaign to destroy his career. Then again, if you believe Quaid's side of the story, he and his wife really have been framed and are on the run from who he calls star whackers, a shadowy cabal engineering the deaths and disgrace of Hollywood celebrities in order to somehow embezzle their royalties or life insurance. He was quoted as saying in 2010, "I've had 8 friends of mine who have either died mysteriously or had scandals surrounding them in recent years," Quaid said in a television interview in 2010, before explaining that the star whackers' MO involves manipulating the banking and criminal justice systems from within in order to create a scandal or a mystery around a celebrity that discredits them. According to the Quaids, Heath Ledger, David Carradine, and Chris Penn were 3 such victims and were convinced they, along with Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan, were on the next list. Then I put on here my website. If you go to greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, you can go to Randy Quaid's he did a press conference a few years back, and you got to listen to that. He explains his story a little bit more in depth than what I just said. Now, also, if you go to my website, hit that donate button and keep the show alive, okay? You can use it PayPal or whatever. Now, there's a third side to this story that I'm going to come up with. And why I find these stories amusing is usually everyone stops with their analysis after the first two that I gave you, either the police side or the government side, and then Quaid's side of the story. But is there another possibility? Now, if star whackers are really after Quaid's money, did he do or say anything that made him a target? That would need to be explored. Or did they just pick him out randomly because he had a little money? Now, there's a lot of people in Hollywood with a lot more money than Randy Quaid. And why would they pick him? Did he say anything? He never in his interview said that. I mean, if a guy's saying he's being attacked by star whackers or the cabal or the Vatican-led New World Order, it should be for some reason like, yes, I started to find out about their evil ways, stuff like that. He never got into that. He started to talk only about these strange and mysterious deaths. Now, a lot of people do that. How many people in Hollywood wonder whether Robin Williams was killed on purpose? Or did they just pretend he was killed and gave him a new identity? So you got to look at Quaid from this side of this story. You know, second of all, let's look at the first time he skipped on $10,000 when he was in a hotel. Now, here's a guy with a lot of money, probably paying with a credit card and it bounces, right? Well, is the first reaction to run? Or is it to say, hey, what's going on here? Let me call. I got money in other accounts. Let me call my business manager. Let me call somebody here. Let me call a friend. And let's straighten this out. I'm sure he's got friends. I mean, he knows De Niro. He starred in a movie with De Niro. Or not De Niro. I think it was Robert Duvall. I mean, he knows Peter Bogdanovich, a great director, found him. Now, if he was really hurting and somebody was stealing his money and he didn't have any, he could make one phone call to Hollywood and clear that up, right? So why did he run? Now, he states that maybe he ran because he fears for his life. Well, running from that isn't going to make things better. And secondly, fearing for your life doesn't mean you can't call a friend and say, hey, somebody's into my account and I got stiffed. I don't have the money, I'm good for it. Send $10,000 to this hotel. Just strange to me that happened. And then there were other hotel bills like that. And this kind of needs to be explored. And as of yet, nothing has ever surfaced where Quaid appears to have upset the Illuminati or their quest for the New World Order. With that said, is it possible, and this is my third analysis, that Quaid is working with the insiders himself? His recent volitional, bizarre behavior now discredits, doesn't it, any of his accusations that star whackers killed Ledger, killed Carradine, killed Penn, and that they even really exist. Now, that when he uses the term star whackers, sounds right out of Hollywood, like it was scripted, doesn't it? Now, that leads the masses to think, only crazy people, he's gone crazy, think this goes on in Hollywood. And that really takes the heat off people that are really getting screwed. Now, that's only a theory. And my conclusion at this time is any one of these three possibilities could be true. And I cannot say with any definiteness which one is true, if any, until more facts surface. But I thought it was interesting to tie in Randy Quaid's story to get off this, this idea of thinking, wow, I want this bill. This might be a category 6 or 7, some people are saying. And can you imagine, and they're saying it's the most probable path is it's going to hit directly through the Keys and then where the water's the warmest in the world at 88 or 89 degrees and then straight up through Florida. And the size of the storm is wider than Florida. Now, I used to live in Naples, My first newspaper job was with the Naples Daily News. And Naples is right directly west of Miami on the coast, the Gulf Coast. And if you take Alligator Alley, a direct line, the road goes 90 miles straight to Miami. Now, if that hurricane hits, it's going to wipe out all that area. And can you imagine the water? Because in between is a swamp called, Alligator Alley. That is nothing but swampland through there. Remember the Seinfeld show where he sold his dad, Jerry sold his dad's car to a buddy living in Florida, and he drove it off into the swamp in Alligator Alley. Well, there's those alligators are going to be taking over Florida if this hurricane hits like that. But anyway, I thought it was interesting to bring in Randy Quaid because he did star in that movie as Tornado Tommy in Category 7. Let's move to the Vatican and unprecedented amounts of child porn just found there. Okay, so I have a big question to ask before we get, we know the Vatican is a bunch of perverts that live there, and that, child sacrificing goes on in the basement, down in the catacombs, etc., etc. But why suddenly is this being exposed by the mainstream media news outlets like The Guardian in England? That's a good question. Maybe it's a way of distracting you from worse crimes that they're committing down in the catacombs? Because if there's child porn, it leads to other things, right? Maybe. But maybe they're doing this to cover up other things that the Vatican is doing. It's only a thought. But according to The Guardian, beyond the child pornography cases, Vatican authorities are battling an array of crimes, including drug trafficking and money laundering. Now, no kidding. I think I've been talking about this since the cows came home about 100 years ago. And now how many hundreds of years they've been doing this? I mean, this is nothing new. But why does the mainstream find that? Are they bringing down the Vatican, creating the new Messiah church? 3 drug deliveries addressed to the Vatican were intercepted in 2014, including a packet containing cocaine-filled condoms. Only in the Vatican, right? The drugs were discovered at Germany's Leipzig airport and handed to the Vatican in the hope of ensnaring the buyer. But no one came forward to claim the package. Smart priests, these Jesuits. Woo! Despite the array of criminal activity, only 6 people ended up in the Vatican's prison in recent years. They include Marcello di Finizio, an Italian protester who climbed atop St. Peter's Basilica, Iana Azzanova, a feminist activist who bared her breasts and grabbed the baby Jesus statue from the Vatican's nativity scene, to name a few. But all these criminal priests, they're out running around performing child sacrifices and pedophilia and what have you. And not to mention all the other crimes the Jesuits are involved with. Well, there's more to this story, and I'm going to have to go to a alternative website who's been covering the unprecedented amount of pornography and other stuff going on in the Vatican. But they say this, a huge amount, and this is from a website. What's the name of this thing? I'll give it to you in a minute. The neonetal.com. Some crazy names. Okay. As the Catholic Church battles to stem their continuing exposure of clerical pedophilia, detectives have uncovered an unprecedented amount of child pornography, including images, videos, and other explicit content discovered within the walls of the Vatican. The Vatican promoter of justice, Gian Piero Milano. Now, isn't that a play on words? The Vatican promoter of justice, as if there's any justice there, released a report in response to the allegation once he read in full to the Catholic Church officials during a judicial ceremony. Due to the Catholic Church's internal investigations protocol, Milano claims he is under no legal obligations to actually name the people accused of pedophilia and possessing child pornography. So basically, why is that justice? He's the protocol man of injustice, or whatever they call him. However, Federico Lombardi, spokesman for the Holy See, he now showed a rare display of openness and named Archbishop Joseph Wesolowski as one of the accused that had triggered the investigation. Although this may seem like forthcoming gesture by the Vatican, reports of Wesolowski not only possessing more than 100,000 images and videos of children being forced into sex acts, but also him sexually abusing multiple children in Poland and the Dominican Republic have already been previously exposed in 2014. Yeah, so throw him to the, they already know he is. The rest of them, they're going to get a free pass, right? What about the Pope and all the other top dogs? I shouldn't even use dog. I mean, that's an insult to dogs. Top idiots. Whatever they are. Due to the Vatican's internal policy, Wesolowski was investigated but escaped jail for his own protection. So look at it. He can't do it. This is incredible. In an unusual move by the church, the high-ranking, why isn't he in the jail over there in the Vatican? In an unusual move because they're all pedophiles. In an unusual move by the church, the high-ranking Catholic official was facing trial from the Vatican's prosecution. Oh, that's good. For his crimes, and had been placed under protective house arrest, but mysteriously died. Oh boy. Before the case ever reached a courtroom. They kill their own all the time. The lack of justice following his death left many of his victims frustrated with suggestions that the only reason for the house arrest is the fact that word got out that he was allowed to roam free after he was quietly whisked away from the Dominican Republic and back to the Catholic city-state by Vatican officials in order to avoid prosecution there. And then they mysteriously kill him. Mysteriously, yeah, they killed him. What do you think? According to Church and State, the descriptions of what was actually found on Wesolowski's computer were more than little stomach churning. There were more than 160 videos of teenage boys being forced to masturbate for the camera and perform sex acts on one another. Now, folks, this isn't just this guy, this archbishop just isn't one in a million. The whole Vatican system is corrupt and full of these perverts. And now the mainstream's picking up on it, and I think they're going to destroy the Vatican when the New World Order comes into play, and they'll form their own new religion that's going to control the world. And they'll play some story like, we got the bad guys in the Vatican out and the good guys are now running the show, which is completely ridiculous. But anyway, people will buy it. Now, in addition, the boys were raped and forced to perform sex acts on adults as well. Wesolowski was tedious and protective of his child porn collection, filing more than 86,000 images into categories in locked folders. Now, maybe they killed him because maybe he would have blew the whistle on other priests, right? In addition to the images and videos present on the computer, at least 45,000 others had already been deleted. Further, the good archbishop wanted to make sure he wasn't without a stash of child porn while traveling, so he took a laptop along on his trips containing even more images and videos. Seems fairly typical that the only accused party to be named in this latest child porn discovery case, in the one that has already been exposed and passed away, with the identities of the other accused kept confidential. Doesn't it seem the way it's going? But according to The Guardian, beyond the child porno cases, Vatican authorities are battling an array of crimes, including drug trafficking and money laundering. Does this sound like God's church? I mean, give me a break. I mean, you million people following the Vatican, now don't fall into this trap that, oh, there's a good side and the bad side. Yeah, there's good priests on the lower levels, of course. But your hierarchy is tainted, sick, and needs to be exposed for what they are, satanic, bloodthirsty worshipers who have no caring for human life, who abuse children, who rape women, and who'll do anything to spread Satan around through the world. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back, and make sure I get the right date. This is September 6th, 2017. Did I say that at the beginning of the show? I thought I said the 5th, but doesn't matter, does it? It's Wednesday. And we all know, isn't it boring, the same 7 days every week? You think we could have been a little bit more creative. And then only 12 months. I mean, why not 24 months, 14 days in a week? Make it, draw the week out. Or make it, 21 days. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? But it'd be, I'm still tired of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In fact, that's why I moved to a foreign country. Just so I could say, lunedì, martedì, mercoledì, giovedì. Made me think like it was a whole new week. That was when I got tired of that after 7 years in Italy. Now I'm saying it in Spanish. I think next month I'm going to go to Sweden. Then I'm going to go then I'll go to Australia. And then I'll just keep, no, they speak English. I'll go to Tibet. And every week, change the way you say it. Even the month would be different, wouldn't it? Oh, well, Greg, you digress. But it's fun, isn't it? Sometimes. Talking about Vatican pedophilia, Vatican sickness, Vatican this, Vatican that, satanic worshiping, it goes on, pedophilia, drugs, the whole thing. And the church is the richest organization in the world. Now that must tell you something about the world, doesn't it? It really must tell you something about the world. Now the funny thing happened on the way to the drug market. We're talking about a couple deliveries here of cocaine and condoms, right, to the Vatican. But let's go back in history a little bit and talk about, and this will lead up to Afghanistan, and I've talked about this story before. But when you talk about drugs, you got to talk about orchestrating of wars. And when you talk about orchestrating of wars, you got to figure out a way to pay for these wars, right, that you're creating. And no better way to start than to figure out how to get into the drug trade, which our great OSS, which turned into the CIA, a couple guys right after World War II working in Rome, by the way, that's where the headquarters was, in World War II of the OSS, which morphed into the CIA. But at the time, they were tired. See, they think ahead. They just ended World War II, but they're already thinking about how they can start funding and causing chaos for the Cold War they had planned in communism between the West and Russia. So Pope Pius XII, the great God on earth that he is, sat with Wild Bill Donovan and a few others in the OSS, and were, having a glass of wine and a plate of spaghetti and having a nice little chat about, things that we all talk about when we sit down to eat dinner. How are we going to fund these wars we're going to create? Because we're going to kill a lot of people. We're going to scare a lot of people in the West, and we've created communism for a reason, and now we've got to fund it. But we got to figure out how to do this, because we want to create guerrilla groups all over the world that are going to go to small little countries, and that's going to increase the fear of the West, and we can really make money on arms and drug trade. Oh, wow. But how are we going to do this? And Pope Pius XII, the historian that he is, said, you know what? This reminds me of what Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek were involved in China, and what they did. And what Shek did to fight off Mao Zedong was to figure out a way to fund, or maybe it was the other way around. I always get those two characters. It doesn't matter. We need to get into the poppy business. We got to find a place where we can grow poppies, which they did. Then we got to figure out, we got to get involved with the Chinese mafias and the drug cartels that they had back then. Then we're going to get a profit. We're going to get a lot of money off of this, but we got to keep those poppy fields going so we can create heroin. Then we're going to drug our own people and get them to pay for it. And then we can send the heroin overseas too. And back then, China was doing it all over Indonesia and other countries there. They were making a fortune off this. So Wild Bill Donovan says, well, how can we do it here? And then they said, well, let's meet in a week or two and let's do some research on where would be the perfect place to create a poppy field. Okay? And so they retired and, to their homes in Rome, and just as we normally do every day, go out, do a little studying, little research. Maybe they started researching where can they find the perfect spot. And they found it. And so they went to this perfect spot. And I've said this on the air several times, and I'm going to make you find the perfect spot this time. because you're going to do your research. And while you're going to do your research, you might find things that I haven't even found out. So you're going to look up, that story I just told you. But they found the perfect spot. And it wasn't in the Middle East, okay? They found the perfect spot. And so they started making money hand over fist. They started growing all of the drug, the poppies and all of the other types of drugs they wanted to get into. Then they got involved with the drug cartels and the mafia. And they were making millions of dollars an hour. And that was the money that was being used. But they had to find a buyer, so they're selling it to the drug. That's when the drug trafficking started to. Did you ever notice in the 50s in America, things were real? There were no drugs in the streets, but in the 60s, man, it just exploded. And that's when it really started to make them money. And boy, I'll tell you, it went well until there was a drought in that area. And they started within a year or two to lose a lot, so they had to find another place. And guess where they went? To Afghanistan. And they're doing it today. Still today. And you'll talk to soldiers that go there, and their job is to guard the poppy fields. And so when we talk about the Vatican drug trade, let's just start there. They were the masterminds of what's going on to this day in Afghanistan. It's the longest running war in America, and the reason we're there is to protect those poppy fields and the drug trade so that we can drug our people. They can make money at it. Now they're going to fund the next war. And they funded a bunch of them with this money, and that's exactly what they're doing. So you can check that out as well. And then check out the football player who was killed by friendly fire in Afghanistan, and he was going to rat, I think, because his parents, he played for the Arizona Cardinals, don't believe that he was killed by friendly fire. They think he was murdered. And he was going to say, hey, I didn't come here to guard poppy fields. I came here to protect American citizens. Boy, that would have been a great story, because people like to listen to football players, especially when we're making a few $1 million a year, and he turned down his contract. So they had to get rid of him, I think. But that's for another day. Okay, so we got that settled. It's bigger than just a few a few condoms full of whatever, heroin or whatever, cocaine, coming to the Vatican. So they discovered these drugs, and then we get to, let's see, where are we at here? I think we're going to finish it right here. Yeah. So the drugs, let me see now. According to The Guardian, they're dealing with these drug trade, and the drugs were discovered at Germany's Leipzig airport. Despite the array of criminal activity, no one's in prison, etc., etc. Now, keep following that story, but I do want to move ahead to a story I read the other day that's interesting, and the question becomes, are a lot of homeless just disappearing and ending up in FEMA camps? Let's get to that right now. Okay, a little note before I get to this story from a listener regarding something that's may come about in the next 72 hours. And I don't know how credible this is, but the person did pull her money out. And she was told that in the town she lives in Mexico, not near me, on the other side of Mexico, but listens to the show, by someone who was a friend in the NSA, that something big was going to happen, and to make sure you didn't have any large amounts of money in American banks, because it would be gone. Now, she says, take the warning as you wish. I'll be hearing more in an hour or two. So gets back to me and says she heard that there would be some types of natural disasters coupled with either terrorist attacks or war that would lead all the ATM machines and the power grid to go down. So that's just speculation, but I thought, and she did pull out the money out of her bank account, which totaled $147.50. Okay. Homeless people being abducted and sent to FEMA camps. claims somebody who inside the story knows. All right, let's see what this is. It's always interesting because homeless people, they just seem to disappear. They're there one day, gone the next. Now, this person says that homeless people, I've been sent this story. It's an alternative story, so take it for what it's worth. Not that the alternative news isn't true, but I'm the alternative to the alternative, so I'm not a part of that. So I'm weary of everything. Homeless people in American cities are being rounded up and disappeared by FEMA operatives, according to a suicide note left behind by a government insider. Describing the phenomenon as human street sweeping, the insider says the abduction of homeless people in the first stage of a FEMA plot to turn 800 internment camps across the country into fully operational prisons. The government insider, who we can now reveal was a U.S. Customs agent based in New York City, wrote a lengthy suicide note exposing plans the government has for its people. The note, which was leaked by a member of New York City Police Department, also explains why he decided to kill himself. The America I grew up, he says, cherished has been murdered by its own federal government. Our Constitution has become meaningless, and our laws politicized so badly they are no longer enforced except for political purposes, the note said. Our elected officials are to a person utterly corrupt and completely devoid of any love or respect for this country which pays them. To them, everything is about getting and keeping power and making illicit money from backroom deals. Now, the waterfront, and that's his note, the waterfront of Chelsea Park, New York, where a government insider killed himself, the 42-year-old U.S. immigration officer, customs enforcement deportation officer, shot himself with a .40 caliber service pistol inside Pier 40 in Hudson River at around 11 a.m. Now, that could be speculation as well. A source at the scene described how the officer calmly walked into the park, took a pistol, shot himself in the head. He was rushed to Lenox Hill Hospital, but doctors were unable to save him. Homeless street sweeping. The note points out that the federal government are now targeting their own people, starting with the most vulnerable. Did you know that it is now illegal to feed a homeless person in at least 33 cities in this once great country of ours? And by the way, also, there is no law in this country that makes being homeless illegal. Okay. I take a sip of water. It's still hot. Here. So much for your Christian duty to provide for the needy. But what FEMA what FEMA is doing on behalf of the federal government is even worse. Now that little note there, 33 cities don't let you feed the homeless. I mean, whatever happened, when I lived in Italy, there was no government to take care of the street people. The restaurants used to feed them. People used to take care of them. And it's ridiculous. Now, the note alleges that FEMA are setting up mobile soup kitchens to attract homeless people. The next day, a white van will show up, sometimes multiple white vans, without any registration tags or markings whatsoever, and with whited or blacked out windows. People wearing blue jumpsuits emerge from the vans and round up the homeless people. What is FEMA? It is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Simply put, it's the secret government. This agency has powers and authority to go well beyond any other agency in our nation. What can FEMA do? It can suspend laws. It can move entire populations. It can arrest and detain citizens without a warrant and can hold them without trial. It can seize property, food supplies, transportation systems, and it can even suspend the Constitution of the United States. Where do they get this power? It would seem ridiculous that if the Constitution says no one can usurp the Constitution, how can they do it? They're betrayed. Homeless people are disappearing. The numbers are growing every day. Search Google and you will find people all over the country talking about the phenomena and what they are seeing happen before their eyes. But the mainstream media are silent because these people are homeless. They are not newsworthy. Mainstream, there doesn't need to be any homeless in this country if this was a fair and if we weren't living under the Vatican-led New World Order. Mainstream lies. We have a culture perception problem with homeless people. We are taught to believe they are the dregs of society, alcoholics, drug addicts, and schizophrenics. But in reality, many of today's homeless are veterans, people who fought for their country and people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Then their job got sent overseas and their world fell apart. They are betrayed. Now, where's Trump? I thought Trump was the savior of the American veterans and the homeless and everything. What's he doing? He's no better than the rest of them, and you know it. They are the betrayed. And now they are being, further betrayed. Where are they taking these homeless people? What are they doing with them in these FEMA camps? Are we going down the road China's going down, abducting people for their organs or for human experimentation? We've already done that, folks. What's this article talking about? That we've never done that? We've been involved in that for years. Or are they being taken to FEMA camps so that the new internment officers can train on them before the camps are rolled out further, with their true purpose coming into play? Our society has collapsed. Jobs sent overseas, an economy collapsed. Won't more and more of us become street-worthy? Will the white vans and the blue jumpsuits become more common? More people will be in a position to lose all of their rights. In this future, any one of us could end up in one of the FEMA 800 internment camps. Well, that's if you live in the United States. I guess they can go anywhere they want. But the point is, look at what's happening, and this is another point that you need to understand, that Trump is supposedly the hero of the middle class and going to change all this. Nothing's changed. Oh, a few little window dressings here and there. But really, nothing's changed. So how can we end the show without talking about what's going on? The orchestrated efforts of the Vatican-led New World Order to create a third world war, which is, right now, everybody in the mainstream says we are on the brink of it. Japan is now evacuating some 60,000 of their citizens from South Korea. The American government has allowed Korea now to enhance the tonnage they can put on a bomb weapon. Russia and China, are they aligning with Korea right now? And Russia and China urge diplomacy to resolve a deepening crisis, but that's really just table talk. And they oppose, though, counterproductive sanctions. So on the one hand, they say, let's not get too tough here. Let's stop this North Korea. But then they tell the West, no more sanctions on North Korea. So what are you supposed to do? Really, look, China, nothing more than the Chinese leader, who's controlled by the Vatican-led New World Order, is there to kind of act as a foil. We're going to stop Korea, but really Korea's been set up by the New World Order, and they all work together. So if the you-know-what hits the fan, China and Russia will align with North Korea, and so will Iran. Russia, who knows? But they've got it all worked out, and all you need is a powder keg event. And then everybody starts lobbing weapons, and nobody wins. And the real point is more weapons, more money, more people get killed, right? Which is what they want. And everybody now, no matter where you talk, on the news, in the UN, in the White House, in China, in North Korea, they all are saying we're on the brink of war, finally. Oh, we finally got what we wanted. And the Jesuits are just now waiting for that proper moment to escalate it into a full-blooded, chaotic situation. And I said a long time ago, we're not going to get through this year without this war starting. Now, if I'm wrong, I want everybody who listens to me to call me out on it and say that. But I just don't think I am this time. And I hope I am. Because who wants to see this? I mean, I at least don't want to see it till after the World Series. Pray tell, not on my birthday on September 11th. My goodness. But to be serious about this, I would never want to see it. And in fact, I'm selfish. let it happen after my lifetime, you know? Now, that sounds kind of selfish. Yeah, but it's honest, isn't it? Wouldn't you think that? But what about my children? Hey, listen, I agree. But what about the people that said that in the Civil War? Probably one of the most, wasn't it the most loss of lives of any war we were in? I'm sure their parents said that too. And we had brother fighting brother. That's how these Vatican Knights work. They don't care about your kids. And you can't stop them. But maybe you could be around a little while with them and then teach them something so that maybe they can protect themselves. But if you're going to follow along with and not understand that the Vatican-led New World Order is behind all this stuff, you aren't helping your kids while you're here on this earth. And so do what you can while you're here. I mean, there's not much you're going to be able to do when you're 6 feet under, right? But you're not doing them any good by not teaching them this. And I'm not saying tell your 5-year-old, but when a kid gets of age to understand reason and history, he needs to know this story, whether he's born Catholic, Jewish, whatever. And if we started doing that, parents, and you started doing your homework instead of, just following along with one of the left or right groups thinking that there's going to be good people at the top that'll help me and save me, that's not going to happen. And I think you're seeing it right now. Weather orchestration, wars on the horizon, terrorist ISIS attacks, biological weapons, chemtrails, bad water, bad food. I mean, can you come up and breathe even? No, the air's no good anymore. They're going to make sure that's gone. And I'm telling you, every leader in every big country and smaller country are all on the same team. If they would not be there, they would be killed. That's how far along the New World Order is. And you're living in a time, unprecedented time of deception. And I hope that a few of the words that I say don't go in one ear and out the other. And although I can't predict things, it's just inevitable that it's going to have to be America that goes down before they can have their New World Order. And it's interesting to know there's a Masonic pyramid hotel that Bill Gates, I'll get into this tomorrow, I'll come back. They built it in North Korea, a number of years ago. Yeah, with Western money, they got a pyramid Masonic hotel right downtown Korea. Check it out. I'll get to all the statistics, all the facts tomorrow. See you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.